Welcome to Focus on Why, the podcast where reflection sparks action. I'm Amy Rowlandson, and together we'll explore compelling stories, profound insights, and transformative experiences from inspiring guests worldwide. Feeling lost or unfulfilled? Searching for clarity, purpose, or meaning in your work and life? This podcast invites you on a journey of self-discovery to align your work with your values, shape your future with intention, and create a purposeful way of life. Have a purpose, have a plan, focus on why. Do you truly understand the power of a focus on why in business? Are your employees fully engaged? Do they consider their work meaningful? Or does your organisation have purpose gaps? Focusing on key areas of employee engagement, contribution, fulfilment, well-being and purpose, all of which have proven links to increased productivity and profitability, I deliver inspiring, mesmerising and captivating talks and workshops providing clear, actionable steps to take. To discuss your specific business needs, reach out to me via the link in the show notes and together we can plug those purpose gaps. Today on Focus on Why, I am joined by Brydon Duncan. Hello, Brydon. How are you?
Hi, Amy. I'm very well. Thank you for having me.
Oh, well, you're very welcome. Let's kick this off with what is it you're focusing on right now?
Right now, I am focusing on a mental health documentary. It's been in the process for the last 18 months, really, and it's finally going to come to fruition this summer.
And what's it going to be about? Obviously, mental health, but more specifically.
It's largely looking at mental health amongst young men and particularly suicide awareness. Unfortunately, just in 2025 alone, there's been over 440,000 suicides, and 80% of those have been young men. So the film focuses on particularly at what young men are particularly upset about at the moment, what the potential causes are, and what we need to do as a group to collectively be better.
And as a young man, you're in this category. What is driving this focus for you?
I think fundamentally it's the fact that it's not just me who's affected, but I've seen people very close to me affected by such issues. I've had very close family friends, unfortunately, take their own life. And I've also seen family members and, again, close friends suffer from mental health issues. And it's very much a passionate subject for me, as it's about encouraging the conversations which ultimately can lead to help for one another, which seems to be particularly ignored.
And what is it that you're looking to focus on in terms of the issues that young men are facing?
Largely, it's the lack of talking. I think that the fact that it's 2025 and we've improved in so many areas in society, and yet talking, which ultimately seems to be the most simple of them all, we still severely struggle in, particularly as a gender of men. So I think just encouraging the fact that talking can help, and it's not pathetic or weak or any of the similar terms to talk, I think would be hugely beneficial for us.
So it's not that you're not talking, it's just that you're not talking about the topics that really matter and the emotions that you're feeling and the things that you're navigating.
Yeah, I mean, I know quite a few men who would be quite happy to bring it up with people, but it's also the people you're bringing up too. A lot of people aren't equipped with the skills or the knowledge on how to deal with that. And ultimately, things just kind of get brushed under the carpet when really the carpet isn't big enough to cover it. And that ultimately is what leads to people taking such drastic measures.
So are you specifically talking about emotions and how to explain what you're feeling and then for the recipient to understand what to do, what to say, how to respond?
Not necessarily. I mean, the film does delve into that. The film does delve into what we can do to help one another, but ultimately, the main sort of focus, I suppose, of the film would be looking at young men, looking at particularly depression and anxiety, how we can help one another in those situations, and what we should be doing in order to stop people taking such drastic measures at the end of the line.
Yeah. So this mental health documentary, you've got it launching this summer. In fact, I think by the time this comes out, it's already going to be launched. So congratulations on the launch of your documentary, Brydon.
Thank you very much.
Uh, but seriously, the impact that you want it to have and why you've spent so much time focusing on it, 80% is a huge number, and I can see how it is a huge problem here. What young men are facing at the moment, give me some examples of what it is that they're actually facing.
I don't think anything's necessarily changed in terms of how many men do struggle. I think it's just because we're more socially aware of it. I think more men are able to understand that they are struggling. However, I think the things that we struggle with have changed over the years. Naturally, that's what happens. And unfortunately, particularly with young individuals who are in their teenage years, a lot of men struggle with bullying. Um, and the reason that that's gotten, in my opinion, worse than it used to have been is that back in the day, you could have just left school and it was left behind. It kind of left you alone. Like when you were at home, you were safe. With social media nowadays, that's not the case. You can't escape it, really. That's ultimately what happened to me. It kind of follows you everywhere you go, and more people start getting involved. So it's no longer just one small group, it's quite a large group. And I think that, in particular with teenagers, has quite a detrimental effect on their mental health.
It's not just as simple as switching off the apps.
No, because ultimately you can't control what they're doing. So you can turn your phone off, but even if you don't directly see it, other people are going to, and then they're going to bring that up when they see you. I mean, that again happened to me quite a lot. There was often things that I wouldn't even notice because I had been blocked or I had blocked other people, but it didn't stop them saying stuff about you. There's no kind of control. You can't really control what they do. So it kind of just, it never really leaves you alone, whether you want it to or not.
So what's the solution?
For me, early education is the best prevention. I think if you educate people, they're less likely to get involved with such things. You can't control people. There are naturally going to be people who aren't the nicest of individuals. That's just how life is. But ultimately, if you can educate them in terms of what they're doing and help them understand the actual effect of what they're doing, it's not just a case of let's all laugh at him. He feels a bit crap. Get on with it. There are actual serious negative effects that can happen. I mean, you've unfortunately, quite frequently hear now about young men who commit suicide, and it turns out they were severely bullied or similar things. So I don't think people really acknowledge that, particularly the young men doing it.
So what I'm hearing is understanding the ripple effects of your behavior on others, and what may seem as a bit of a laugh can actually have dire consequences. And it's not acceptable. It's not banter. It's not fun. And yet at the time, it's perceived as that. And that's why it continues and it's sustained. And yeah, bullying has been going on for a long time. I understand that the presence of social media is prevalent in terms of you can't switch it off. It's going to happen anyway. We're now more connected than we're ever been. It can happen that somebody saying something would take a while for those Chinese whispers to get around. Now it's instant. So, what is it that we can do in terms of that education piece?
For me, I think we need to modernize the way we educate. So, for example, with this film I'm creating, people consume media on their phones nowadays. That's just a fact. By having something like my film or other short form content, people are more likely to consume it. People don't like to sit down and read. They don't really like to sit down and watch 2.5 hour long documentaries or films. They want stuff that's short and snappy. So, along with my documentary, I am hoping to pump out short form content, some of which will be from the documentary, kind of to for people to watch. Because if it's a minute long, they watch it. That's just how people's brains work. And also, one thing I think we should do, I would like to happen with my film, is a bit like what we've done with adolescents. I'd like it to be pushed out towards schools and encouraged to be shown, because I think it's a particularly important um, topic anyway. But the fact that it would be shown in schools, I think students are probably more likely to be engaged than just sitting and listening to a talk.
And what was your response to adolescence?
I thought it was very moving, but it also opened up a lot of questions. I think it definitely explored part of the reason why young men are angry for certain, and the detrimental effect figures like Andrew Tate have. Um, but I think for me, it definitely was a case of answered some questions, but definitely caused a lot more to be asked. And that's kind of what I'm trying to do with my film. I'm trying to kind of answer some of those questions as to why young men are so angry or upset. For me, it appears they're more upset and then it can develop into anger. But yeah, ultimately why young men feel these negative emotions.
And these emotions, which are manifesting in different ways for different people. So, anger and sadness and frustration will come out in different ways. Some people will, or not even come out. Some people just stifle it and hold it back. So, what is it again that for you, from your perspective, you mentioned earlier about the drive being because this is something you experienced and that you were severely bullied and you don't want that to happen to others. What can people do for themselves and for anyone who is noticing that a young man in their life is experiencing this?
The best thing I always say to people when someone's going through a time of need is just make it clear you are there for them. You can never push someone to get help because ultimately, the more you push them, probably the less likely they are to get help. I would say. I think they've kind of got to figure it out on their own. It's a very fine line. You've got to let them know that you're there for them, and you've got to encourage them to get help and make them know options are available. But you can't really cross that line in terms of forcing them to, because they need to do it by themselves. Because as someone who I suppose almost has been forced to get into stuff, I never did it as confidently or emotionally as I probably should have. I mean, I was in therapy a few times, and the first few times I didn't want to be there, and I didn't take it anywhere near as seriously as I probably should have. It was only when I then decided to go myself later on down the line that, for me, it really did make a positive impact on my life. Whereas before, I kind of, I was kind of just going through the motions. I was there, I was showing face, but I didn't want to be there because I didn't really at the time want help. I just kind of, and I thought it would kind of figure itself out. Quite a silly, looking back, it's quite a silly way to think, but at the time, I kind of thought, oh, it's fine.
And it's interesting, Brydon, if you don't mind sharing, when you were in those early sessions and you thought it would just sort of work itself out and you were just going through the motions versus going into that process again, can you identify or describe the difference that it made once you embraced it?
I think the difference is that the reason why I acknowledged I needed to go and get help is largely because I noticed the effect it was having on my personal life. So, for example, the first time I went around, I was about 16 years old, I believe. I was going there because I was getting bullied. I was unhappy, but I didn't really want to go because in my head, it wasn't my fault. So why should I'm not the one who needs fixing? It's them. Um, Whereas the second time I went around, I must have been about 18 or 19. But by that point, I had a partner, and kind of with her help, I kind of acknowledged that there was a few things probably that I did or processes I kind of went through where I kind of thought, probably because I've been affected by this. Um, so when I then reapplied myself, I could kind of feel myself going into a depressive episode. Once you've had as many as I've had, I kind of can see the early signs. So I signed myself up knowing the waiting list would be long, and then by the time I got onto the system and was being seen, that was when the kind of episode happened. So I was in quite a safe place by that point because I felt I had people I could talk to, both emotionally and professionally.
And this safe place, and knowing that you were coming towards another episode, this is what is lacking for all those that are not having a safe space, right?
Yeah, and you often find that people who are quite quiet, who often don't also find it quite hard to form friendships and special bonds. Naturally, and unfortunately, that's part of their they're just quite lone wolf people. I mean, naturally, that's always what I was like. I never really had a lot of friends as a kid, largely because of my autism. I couldn't really make friends or form special bonds with people that weren't my parents or professionals. Um, that changed as I got older, and I found it very beneficial to have people who kind of loved me for me, like my parents would have naturally. Because what they're saying to you or what they're hoping for you, it comes from a place of kindness and love as opposed to just advice out of a book.
And you mentioned your autism there and how it sort of prevented you from reaching out and forming bonds with others. Is there a correlation at all with a neurodivergence and a prevalence for difficulty in expressing yourself that then gets to the point of death by suicide?
I can't say for certain as I'm not sure of any studies. However, for sure, based on both personal experience and people around me and other people I know, there's definitely a link between mental health issues and neurodivergency. So naturally, people who are neurodivergent, we often struggle to present ourselves or express the way we feel in the normal terms, which often means that we don't get the help we need naturally. And I think that many of us struggle with it, particularly because it's overwhelming for us. So I'm lucky. I am very verbal. I'm quite competent in a normal, non-neurodivergent setting. However, many of us aren't, and they're often the ones who are left behind. And they're kind of everything's kind of just stubbed. Oh, he's autistic. Like it's normal. Um, and probably and in retrospect, some of the very obvious signs are ignored because it's just dubbed an autism thing as opposed to a he's suicidal thing.
Hmm. So your documentary has been a focus. What's next?
I'm looking to start a charity in 2025, particularly focused on the awareness side of mental health. So I would like the charity to involve going to sports institutions or schools and doing talks, even businesses, kind of just less side of the practicing side of, of the mental health industry and more so on the awareness side, because that's where the passion is for me. It's not about the passion for me isn't about necessarily making people better. The passion for me is making society as a whole better and encouraging people to get that help in the first place. Kind of the first step of the process, which I think is the hardest one.
And you mentioned passion there. How about purpose? How does this fit here?
I think everyone on this planet has a reason why they're here. I'm not a religious person, but I do believe everyone has a thing, or as you say, a purpose. And I think it changes throughout their lives. So people might in their 20s have a purpose of being in a career, and in their 30s, it might be being a parent. It can change. I'm not sure necessarily it's always one thing. I think for me in my teen years, my purpose was to be an athlete. Um, Unfortunately, for many reasons, including mental health issues, that never came to fruition. But I also think that the experiences I have had have led me into the path I'm in now, which is the mental health awareness side. And I think that's the purpose, certainly for the time being, in order to make it. I want to make a difference for other people and not let them live the same experiences I had because it's not nice. It really isn't nice.
No, I hear that. And the way that I describe it, Brydon, is that purpose is the overarching intention that guides your direction in life. And the why is the emotional significance that you assign to that. And it's very much a case of it's not found, it's created because it comes from within. So what you're describing here is absolutely the purpose has evolved for you in terms of you were focusing on a particular achievement through your sport, and then it has evolved actually into part of that has evolved into the awareness and commitment that's needed for this side of things. So commitment and dedication that you have are the attributes that you bring to what you're doing, and but the focus has changed, and that's where now it is, very much this mental health awareness for society, which I agree with you needs to come from a multi-prong element here, that needs to come from all areas, because it's no one it's no one single area of responsibility. It's everybody's individual responsibility to play their part here, to bring this, as you said right at the beginning, that collective sort of awareness and responsibility. But you have to take it individually as well, to be open to seeing the signs, to sharing with people. So what I'm hearing here is you've taken responsibility to raise the awareness, but it's now the time or the opportunity for others to take that baton on as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's all well and good me doing this, but if no one understands the message, then it's almost like a waste of time. I mean, I've been very fortunate in that I have connected with some people in quite a big way. I mean, I've already had one person a couple of years ago tell me in person that if he hadn't have seen what I had posted online, that he wouldn't be here today. So that was quite a big thing. And I'm in a very fortunate position where I'm still alive today and can do that. It's a very bleak job at times. It at the end of the day, you're dealing with people who ultimately have put their own life in their own hands, and sometimes you don't connect with the people in the way you hope to, and you're always naturally going to feel a sense of guilt when you hear bad news. So every day, I just try and evolve the way I talk to people, connect with people, because it's so important that I do what I can. I mean, and whenever I meet someone who's struggling and they talk, I always want to say to them that I'm really proud of them, because if it wasn't for people like them who do talk and almost like lead the way, it wouldn't be worth me doing my job, because otherwise even if I had no active involvement with these people, I always like to tell them I'm proud of them, because it's people like them who keep me doing what I do, because I see how you see the kind of the positive effects of talking, um, and you kind of see the weight leave their shoulders, and it's quite nice to see. And it goes on in every family and friendship group around the world. Um, Maybe some of it not so obvious.
And you say a job. Job in what sense?
I mean, I say job. I do it because I do it because I love it, and I do it because I want to. So even when I do hopefully go full time with this, it will never be a job. It's always going to be something that I do. Whether I'm paid or doing it for free, it's always going to be something that I aspire to do. So yeah, now that I think, yeah, job isn't really the right word to use, really. Because I think if you say a job, you're usually describing something that you go and do because you get paid. Whereas for me, it's nothing about the money. It's all about the purpose of what I'm doing.
Mm. Yeah. So again, it's just purpose, and which is not changing what you said earlier about the fact that your purpose changes, because it does. It evolves. It will shift and it will change. But the focus right now, and as you just said, it's something you're always going to have a part in. It's always going to play a role in your life because of how significant it is. It is, and that's the why, the emotional significance that I spoke about earlier of how meaningful this is to you. that it's not a transient thing. It's something that's now almost part of your DNA in terms of this is running through your core. Someone described it to me the other day as my stick of rock. You know, if you cut through the middle, you'd see it there all the way through. And that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, it's certainly my past experiences. Sorry, my past experiences have certainly shaped the way that I am today. And I think if it wasn't for the way I was raised and the experiences that I don't really want to say fortunately because they weren't good experiences, but the experiences I went through, I don't think I'd be in this position today where I could talk about this so openly and probably with as much confidence as I do. Because I think I think anyone can kind of talk about it if they really wanted to, but to do it in the way that I do, I think takes a certain kind of person. Because ultimately, I'm telling very intimate details of my life um, on a public domain for essentially the entire world to hear and listen, which I think takes some confidence because you can't take that back. That's always going to be there.
Yeah, I hear you. And for some context, Brydon, because it is just an audio piece that we've got here, explain to people where you are in your life in terms of your age and what you're doing other than this focus.
Okay. So I'm 20 years old and I'm currently studying at Brunel University of London. I'm currently studying sports health and exercise sciences. I've just finished my first year and I'm much happier at university than I have been in quite a few years. Certainly when it came to the actual sport. So I'm a shot putter and discus thrower. I was involved with the training group, which whilst they were elite, and I do appreciate everything I taught, I think what I needed at the time, it wasn't necessarily the right place for me to go to. I think it wasn't right for the stage of my career where I was at, and ultimately I didn't reap the benefits I was hoping to. And unfortunately, based on both performances and also the environment I was in, it led to me being very unhappy, particularly with everything else that was going on in life at the time. Whereas nowadays at Brunel, I'm with a new coach, and it's pretty amazing how much of a difference a coaching environment can really change your outlook on not just athletics, but kind of on life at the time. I just feel like I'm in a much, not just happier, but I feel like I'm in a safer place. He really highlights the importance of happiness being above everything. That's not to say that performance doesn't matter because importance is one of, if not the most important thing when it comes to an athlete. Um, and as an ex Olympian, he understands that because he did what it took to get to the top. But he also understands that if you're not happy with what you're doing or the journey you're on, you will never make it because you have to be enjoying the journey in order to get to the end goal.
Coaching in any environment is so empowering when done well and can also be quite disruptive if not, because of the relationship that you've just described. How much is mental in terms of, yes, a sport may be physical, but you can see someone unravel in front of you very fast when they allow those thoughts to take over that aren't empowering ones. You can see it on a tennis court in the middle of a game when someone gets thrown off their game in terms of the mental game. What I'm hearing here also is that focus on what you love, focus on what matters, focus on what it is that you want to be doing in terms of this is going to bring me fulfillment. And that does lead to happiness. The happiness ensues as a result of all of those. But a lot of people try and chase happiness in itself, and that's a futile. way to go?
I mean, I certainly used to live that way of chasing happiness and kind of chasing approval from other people. And I had a conversation with Zane Weir, who's an Italian shot putter. We had a very good conversation. And one thing he taught me, I mean, he's a very philosophical man, Zane, but one thing he taught me was to highlight the importance of the journey you're on as opposed to the destination. Ultimately, in life, we all inevitably end up in the same place at some point. And for me, if I died tomorrow, I'd like to say that I enjoyed what I did up to that point and I left life feeling that I did something worthwhile for me. And for me, that is making bonds with people. And at the moment, the mental health stuff, if you asked me 5 years ago, it would have been achieving a British title win, which I did, and it was fantastic. And that will change probably another 100 times throughout my life. But I appreciate I am in a very blessed position that I am able to do what I do because not everyone could. Not just because they literally can or can't, but some people may not be in the financial position to, or they might not be able to go to university or anything along the lines. And for me, I'm trying to live life day by day at the moment and enjoy as many experiences as I can, whether it be traveling the world or meeting new people or learning something new. It's a day by day thing for me, and I'm highlighting the importance of inner peace, really. Because for me, inner peace is the one wealth that we all can achieve eventually one day, as well as human connection. That to me is also one of the most important things. Because without human connection, I don't think we as a species. That's what separates us as a species. We can connect with one another quite a big way, and I like to have important connection. I like to have meaningful connections with as many people as possible.
I speak to so many people, Brydon, on this podcast, and rarely do I have this level of understanding and insight with someone at your age, purely because there is so much depth to what you've just shared. And what I've heard is this understanding of living in the moment means that you are not dwelling on the past and not worrying about the future, but you're focused on today. And that's part of what enjoying the journey is being present to the people who are around you, to yourself, to what's going on. And the hearing you talk about this inner peace, I've heard so many people who've spent decades trying to accomplish that and then only realizing that they had been chasing the impossible and that it was always there in terms of they had that ability to tap into that if they just paused and reflected and gave themselves that space. And that's the gift that you have already at your age. So it's exciting. I feel that there is so much that you can achieve because of having this absolute gift and this one wealth, as you say, that you could all achieve.
I mean, that's the thing. And this is what the film highlights. It's a battle every day for me. I mean, if you ask me, am I happy a couple of years ago? I would have told you I was the happiest person on the planet because I was in a very loving relationship. I had a good connection with my parents. Life was pretty good at the time. Unfortunately, nothing lasts forever, and that all changed. Um, and then, if you asked me last year, I would have told you I was terribly miserable. And some days are better than others, even today, even like nowadays, like I still have days where you feel a bit like crap, but that is life. And what I've learned is that just because you feel crap today doesn't mean you'll feel crap tomorrow. And it doesn't mean if you feel that way in the morning, you'll feel that way in the afternoon. You have to take each day by itself. Some people might find that quite bleak. I actually find it very exciting because if every day was the same, I'd get very bored very quickly. And that's kind of what I tell my closest friends as well. I mean, it's just, you've just got to take each day in its stride. And the days where I'm at my happiest, I really do feel a sense of peace and wealth around me because I think I've got loving friends, I've got loving family. I'm in a pretty, what's the word, privileged position. I'm very happy.
Thank you for sharing what you have today, Brydon. It really has been a privilege to hear you share your message. What's the best way for people who might want to reach out and connect with you?
The best way to reach me for anything really would be via my Instagram, which is just Brydon Duncan. I'm a verified account, so it's quite easy to find. But I post on there fairly often. A lot of it's sports related, some of it's mental health related. I kind of try and keep things varied because I like to bring people some form of happiness. So ultimately, if I can make people just a little bit happier each day, that's the best thing.
Well, the link is in the show notes for anybody who wants to connect. Please do. Brydon, thank you so much for sharing your message about the importance around mental health, particularly in regards to what young men are facing right now and what we can do about it. Do you have some final words, please, for the listener?
Talking is the only way that we can help one another. It is the only way that we can connect as humans, and connection is the most important thing and powerful thing that we have.
This episode's over, but let's keep the conversation going. How has this episode impacted you? Share your insights, takeaways, and reflections with actions on social media, or leave a review on Apple Podcasts. Your feedback creates powerful ripple effects, helping others to discover its value. Want to dive deeper into purpose? Check the show notes for links on how to work with me, where to buy my new book, Focus on Why, Create a Purposeful Way of Life, available in paperback, ebook, and audiobook, and where to sign up for Friday Focus, my weekly newsletter. Have a purpose, have a plan, focus on why.